Welcome back. We are back with more on the U.S. elections as 3 states hold their Democratic primaries. We're now joined by Santiago Pérez Benítez. He is the Deputy Director of the International Policy Research Center of Cuba and joins us from our studios in Havana. Thank you so much for being with us, Santiago.
Thank you, Camila, for inviting me to share my thoughts on these issues.
Now, Joe Biden remains the front runner, and many predict that he will remain in front. With so much momentum behind Bernie Sanders, how do you think primaries and the treatment of Sanders by both the Democratic Party establishment and the media will affect the Democratic Party and young voters?
Camila, I think that what has happened this year was the same that happened in 2016 when Bernie Sanders was on stage in terms of getting votes and the Democratic Party establishment said that everybody against Bernie. And we are seeing the real power in the US and the real power behind the establishment of the Democratic Party. Everybody was saying that Bernie was too radical, too socialist, to be representing the whole Democratic Party against Trump. And it was a chorus, it was a very consensual part of the Democratic establishment. What do you want me to tell you? That's the way the political power is built in the US and within the Democratic Party, which is part of that instrument of power. The same with the press, but the support of the rank and file Americans to Bernie is impressive. The millennials, the young people, working class, and the ideals of socialist ideas. Bernie is not shy in terms of defending socialism. So I think that it's a big step forward in terms of the progressive movements in the US, and it's going to stay. It's going to stay in the foreseeable future. In the US, we have other young representatives, young politicians, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and others. I don't think anymore that socialism or social ideas, which are not radical, they're human. And to have healthcare system for all, or not to pay for education, that's normal. That's nothing to be ashamed about. And I think that's very good, and that's in a foreseeable future. It's going to persist in the U.S. political system, the U.S. political debate.
Now, the United States government absolutely rejects the examples by socialist governments and of their socialistic policies towards medical care. What's your view of the response so far by the U.S. federal government as governments around the world scramble to fortify their healthcare systems?
Well, nothing else to expect for Mr. Trump or from the U.S. Government. He has committed enormous mistakes. First, downgrading the real threat of coronavirus to the U.S. system. There is a lot of analysis saying that maybe 200,000 or 1 million victims could be for the coronavirus. So first, they downgraded the real threat. And second, it's been showed that the narrative, that the liberal narrative of having private health care is getting the U.S. to nowhere. I mean, and that's part of the whole capitalist way of doing health care in the U.S. That's why Bernie's and a lot of Democrats' ideas of having free Medicaid and free health care, it's been attractive. What we are seeing from this coronavirus phenomenon is the incapability of the U.S. neoliberal healthcare system to cover the needs of human beings in the United States. The ideological rejection of the way the Chinese have been dealing with the virus or the Cubans have been dealing with the virus is very, I would say, sorry, stupid and ideological. Trump has said today that it was already a Chinese disease, you know, the racism behind his way of looking at things. but reality is reality. And the world is seeing the way people are being treated, and the system is working in the case of Cuba and also in the case of other countries, China and others.
Now let's talk about the impact of these elections on Cuba. Assuming Bernie Sanders and Biden have a shot at the presidency, are their policies towards Cuba going to be any more favorable towards Cuba than under the Trump administration?
Oh, for sure. I mean, Trump is the first coronavirus we had, Camila, and all the things he has been doing since 2017 has been denying the rights of the Cuban families to be reunited, has been increasing sanctions, which are genocide against Cuban people. So anything different from Trump would be positive for Cuba. There is nuances between Sanders and Biden. Biden, I would say, would retake the Obama strategies in terms of Cuba. We favor some of the moves that Obama has been taken, saying at the same time that what Obama did change was the way of trying to subvert socialism in Cuba. But we accepted that challenge at that time. So Biden's pretty much to continue that way and trying to be involved with Cuban society, which is positive in the sense that you know whom you are dealing with. Bernie has its own ideas of the Cuban political system. We don't want to agree with him or with Biden or with Democrats or Republicans. We just need respect, and we have our own ideas of the U.S. political system, the way it's been done. But I think that if there is a change in the White House, that would be positive for U.S.-Cuban relations, and thanks God could be the possibility of lifting the blockade. I mean, you are having sanctions against one small neighboring island for 60 years. So there is now the possibility of acquiring here medicines, vaccines, and other from the U.S. And the same with now with the possibility of having or exporting our vaccines or medicines to the U.S. That's very criminal from the part of Trump administration and the supporters of this line of blockades. Very selfish and very discriminatory of Cubans. Look at the example that Cuba is giving right now. Nobody wanted to accept an English cruise, British cruise line in their ports. Cuba, having a lot of risk, accepting them, have taken them. Because most important here, Camila, is the word of solidarity, the word of love.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your insight. We've been speaking to Santiago Pérez Benítez. He is the Deputy Director of the International Policy Research Center of Cuba. We'll be right back after this short break.